Keanu Reeves walks into his own dealership to buy a truck like any regular customer, keeping his identity low-key. But when he hears a struggling customer behind him, he stops in his tracks, and what he does next changes that person's life and the way his dealership does business forever. The day he walked in. So here's how it happened. One ordinary Tuesday afternoon, Keanu Reeves walked into his own car dealership like a stranger, with a baseball cap pulled low and a coffee cooling in his hand. Rain still clung to his jacket from the ride over. He had taken his motorcycle instead of having someone drive him, because he needed the time alone, the hum of the engine, the wind in his face. The dealership's glass doors slid open and the smell of new leather and tire rubber rolled toward him, mixed with the faint echo of pop music playing from somewhere near the service bays. Balloons floated from the ceiling, bright and cheerful, and salespeople in neat shirts drifted between shining cars like actors hitting their marks. Keanu paused for a second, taking it all in, not as a celebrity, not even as the co-owner of the place, but as a customer trying to feel what it felt like to be here. He had a simple goal that day: buy a truck. Not the most expensive one, not the flashiest. He wanted something tough and honest, something he could load with guitars, old books, and boxes of food for the charity drop-offs he did quietly on weekends. A truck that could handle late-night drives into the mountains when his thoughts got too loud. He could have called the general manager and had it delivered to his house with a bow on it, but that wasn't the point. He wanted to walk the floor, talk to the staff, see how people were treated when no one thought the boss was watching. "Hey, welcome to Silverline," the receptionist said, not recognizing him at first. Her name tag read Lily in careful blue ink. She smiled like she meant it, even though her eyes were a little tired. "Looking for anything special today?" "Yeah," he said with that soft, slightly shy half-smile. "Thinking about a truck, something that doesn't mind getting dirty." She laughed. "You came to the right place. I'll get someone to help you out. Coffee." He lifted the cup already in his hand. "I'm good, but thanks." As he waited, he wandered between the rows of vehicles, running his fingers lightly along cool metal, reading window stickers the way other people read movie posters. Payment plans, interest rates, down payments. Numbers that could quietly decide if a person drove home hopeful or humiliated. He thought about how many people had walked in here on the edge of giving up, praying the math would finally work in their favor. He owned part of this building, but those numbers were the real power here. And power, he had learned, was only decent when it was used to lift someone who couldn't lift themselves. "Mr. Reeves," a voice said carefully from behind him. A young salesman, maybe mid-20s, approached with a folder clutched to his chest, nervous but trying not to show it. "I'm Evan. Lily said you were looking for a truck." "Just Keanu is fine," he replied. "Nice to meet you, Evan." Evan led him to a row of trucks lined up like soldiers. They talked about engines and towing capacity, about bed liners and long road trips. Keanu cracked a small joke about needing room for too many bad guitars, and Evan actually laughed, the tension in his shoulders slipping a little. For a moment it felt almost normal, like two regular guys comparing machines, the sun trying to break through the gray clouds outside. A dark blue truck caught his eye, nothing wild, solid, steady, a little older than the brand new models, like it already knew how to work for a living. He stepped closer, peered inside at the worn-in cloth seats, the faint scuff on the dash. There was a story here already, some family or worker who had had to let it go. He liked that. He liked things that had survived something. "I like this one," he said quietly. "Can we take it for a spin?" Evan's face lit up. "Absolutely, I'll grab the keys." While Evan headed to the desk, Keanu stayed by the truck, hands in his pockets, listening. Not to the music or the phone ringing in the finance office, but to the low human sounds that lived in places like this. A kid asking too many questions, a couple whisper arguing over monthly payments, the polite, practiced voices of salespeople trying to seem confident even when they were scared of missing their quota. He had spent years around cameras and scripts, but this kind of tension felt more real than anything on a set. Behind him, a door opened with a soft hiss. He didn't turn, but he heard it, the fragile edge in a woman's voice, the kind of tone people use when they're balancing hope and humiliation and trying not to let either show. "I'm sorry, ma'am," a man was saying, his words crisp, rehearsed. With your credit score and that down payment, this is the best we can do. Maybe in a year if things improve. There was a quiet inhale, a sharp little breath pulled in and held too long. Keanu felt it in his chest before he even heard her speak. I don't have a year, the woman said, her voice shaking. My son starts his new school next month. I told him I promised him we'd have a car by then. I can't put him on the bus in the dark again, not after what happened last time. The dealership noise kept going, phones, chatter, printers spitting paper, but the space around those words seemed to fall silent. Keanu's fingers curled slowly inside his pockets. His body, already halfway turned toward the truck, stopped dead. He stared at the blue paint in front of him, seeing another time, another promise he hadn't been able to keep, a hospital room where he'd been too late to change anything. His heart gave a slow, heavy thud, like a door being shut from the inside. Evan reappeared at his side with the keys, breathless and smiling. Okay, Keanu, you're all set, ready to take her out. Keanu didn't move. The woman behind him spoke again, her voice breaking on a single word that cut straight through the noise and the years between his past and this moment. Please. The keys in Evan's hand jingled softly as they swung, waiting for Keanu to reach out. Instead, he stood completely still, every instinct in him pulling in two different directions. Walk away and mind his own business, or turn around and risk changing this woman's life, and maybe his own, in a way the dealership manuals had never prepared anyone for. He drew in a slow breath, the sound of that one desperate please echoing inside him, and in that suspended second before he chose which way to turn, everything in the showroom seemed to hang in the air. The promise and the stranger. He turned. Slowly, like his body already knew the decision before his mind caught up, Keanu pivoted away from the blue truck and toward the voices behind him. Evan hesitated, the keys still dangling from his hand, looking between Keanu and the truck like he wasn't sure which one he was supposed to chase. But Keanu gave him a small nod that said, "Give me a second," without using any words, and walked toward the sound of that breaking voice. At a small glass-walled office near the corner of the showroom, a woman sat on the edge of a chair, purse clutched so tight in her lap that her knuckles were white. Her hair was pulled back in a way that said, "I tried," even though the day had clearly been throwing punches at her. Beside her stood a boy, maybe 11, in a faded superhero t-shirt and slightly too big sneakers. He rested one hand on his mother's shoulder, like he thought he was the one holding her up, not the other way around. Across from them, a finance manager in a stiff shirt and perfect tie. His name plate said Tony. Tapped a screen with a stylus, eyes locked on numbers instead of the people in front of him. "Ma'am, I do understand," Tony said, though his tone made it clear he mostly understood interest rates. "But even with our best program, your monthly payment would be way over what you wrote on this form. I can't approve something that puts you in a position to fail. That's not responsible." "It's not responsible to send a kid in the dark on a bus with broken lights," she shot back, voice trembling with anger and fear tangled together. "He got pushed last time. They stole his backpack, his inhaler." She swallowed hard, her eyes glistening. "I found him walking home alone in the rain. That was a month ago. They still haven't fixed the route or the driver. I can't do that to him again." The boy stared down at his shoes, jaw tight, cheeks burning with the kind of shame kids feel when adults talk about their pain like it's just another problem on a form. Keanu felt something in his chest twist. He knew that feeling of being small in systems that didn't care, of promises broken by people who said, "Sorry, there's nothing we can do," as if that excused everything. For a second, the dealership around him flickered, replaced by other rooms, other forms, other days he'd wished he could rewrite and hadn't been able to. He hovered at the edge of the doorway, not wanting to intrude, but unable to walk away. This was the thin line he hated, the one between helping and humiliating someone, between kindness and turning a person into a charity case in front of strangers. The woman's shoulders were already tight with pride trying to stand up against panic. He could see it in the way she kept wiping her palms on her jeans, like she was trying to rub off the feeling of needing anyone. "Excuse me," Keanu said softly, tapping the open door frame with his knuckles. "I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just over there and I couldn't help overhearing a little." His voice was gentle, not the movie hero growl people expected from him. "Is everything okay?" Three heads turned. Tony's eyes narrowed, already annoyed at the distraction. The woman blinked in surprise, then in mortification as she realized someone else had heard her pleading. The boy, though, he froze, his gaze locking onto Keanu's face with a kind of slow, dawning disbelief. It was like watching a computer boot up. Confusion, recognition, then something close to awe. "Oh, we're fine," Tony said quickly, stepping into the doorway as if he could physically block the problem from spreading. "Just a private finance discussion, sir. If you need assistance, any of our sales staff would be happy to." The boy tugged at his mother's sleeve without taking his eyes off Keanu. "Mom," he whispered, then a little louder, "Mom, that's..." His voice trailed off, stuck somewhere between two names he probably knew from posters and streaming services. Keanu gave the kid the smallest conspiratorial smile, like they were sharing a secret. "Hey," he said, tilting his head toward the boy. "Cool shirt." It really was cool, worn, loved, the hero's logo cracked from 100 washes. The boy flushed, half proud, half stunned. You're him," he breathed. "Sometimes," Keanu answered, still gentle. Then he turned back to the woman. "Look, I don't want to pry, but I heard you mention your son's school. Is it a distance thing or—" She studied him, suspicion and hope battling in her eyes. She knew who he was now, you could see the realization clicking into place. But she also knew he was a stranger walking into the middle of the hardest conversation she'd had in months. "It's both," she finally said. "I work nights at the hospital and clean offices in the morning. The bus schedule changed, and now it's dark when he leaves and dark when he comes back. I can't be in two places at once. I just need something that runs, nothing fancy." Her voice cracked on that last word, like even asking for nothing fancy felt like too much. Tony cleared his throat, eager to regain control. "Sir, we've already gone through her options. Unfortunately, with her current income verification and credit file, she doesn't qualify for the vehicle she wants. We can't override the bank. I've done all I can do." His eyes flicked to the floor, then up again, past Keanu's shoulder. He'd finally noticed Evan hovering near the trucks, watching the scene with growing anxiety. "Evan, don't you have a test drive to do?" Yeah," Evan said, halfway between duty and concern. His gaze landed on Keanu. "Whenever you're ready, Keanu." Keanu didn't move toward him. He stayed where he was in that cramped doorway, shoulders almost brushing the glass. "What if the numbers changed?" he asked Tony quietly. "Hypothetically." Tony frowned. "Sir, unless a large co-signer appears out of nowhere or she magically finds another few $1,000s, the bank isn't going to—" He stopped mid-sentence as the implication caught up with the words he'd just said. His eyes sharpened. "Wait, are you saying you want to?" The woman stiffened. "No," she said it fast, almost panicked. "No, absolutely not. You don't even know me. I'm not letting some movie star pay my bills like I'm in one of those feel-good videos and then go viral because I couldn't handle my life." Her jaw trembled as she forced herself to hold his gaze. "I've worked too hard to be someone's charity moment." The words hit Keanu harder than she meant them to. He felt a sting of respect burn under the rejection. She wasn't angry at him. She was angry at the situation that made his offer possible in the first place. He got that. He'd done quiet favors for people before, always trying to disappear from the story afterward. The spotlight didn't heal. Half the time, it just made the wound a spectacle. "I don't want that for you either," he said gently. "I'm not here to make a video. I came to buy a truck." He nodded toward the blue one across the floor. "I'm actually part owner here, but I wanted to see how it feels from this side of the desk. I heard you, and it sounded like you've been fighting alone for a long time." Tony's head snapped up. "Part owner," he repeated, his voice suddenly a shade higher. He glanced through the glass at the logo on the wall, then at Keanu again, adding 2 and 2 together and finally getting 4. His whole posture shifted from dismissive to nervous in one heartbeat. "Mr. Reeves, I didn't realize you were—" Before he could finish, another voice cut in from the hallway, sharp but curious. "Tony, what's going on in here? We've got 3 appointments waiting and—" The general manager, Carlson, stepped into view, gray suit, practiced smile ready to smooth out whatever wrinkle had appeared. That smile froze the instant he saw who was standing in the doorway. His eyes widened, the color draining from his face as his brain did its own quick math on the situation. "Sir," Carlson said, recovering fast, I didn't know you were visiting today." His gaze flicked from Keanu to the woman and her son, then to Tony, then back again, reading the whole scene in a split second like a man who understood exactly how much trouble or opportunity might be sitting in this small office. He straightened his tie. Is there a problem?" The boy looked from the nervous manager to his mother's clenched hands, then up at Keanu again. There was a question in his eyes that didn't need words. Are you really like the heroes you play, or is this where you walk away? Keanu felt the weight of that look settle on his shoulders, heavier than any stunt rig he'd ever worn. For the first time in hours, he forgot completely about the truck, the test drive, his own quiet mission. All that mattered was the woman gripping her purse like a lifeline, the boy trying to stand tall for her sake, and the system of rules and numbers standing between them and one simple human need. He drew a breath, steady and deliberate, and turned to face Carlson fully, his decision finally formed. "Yeah," he said, voice low but certain. "There is a problem, and I think it starts with how we treat people like her." The room went still, Tony swallowing hard, Carlson's smile freezing at the edges, the woman staring at him in startled disbelief, the boy's eyes shining with a hope he was almost afraid to feel. In that charged silence, before anyone could answer or retreat or pretend they hadn't heard him, Keanu took one slow step further into the office, crossing an invisible line he knew he couldn't uncross.